I didn't even remember. There.
Hello, everyone. We'll get started. If you want to grab some food, you're welcome to. All right, thank you all for being here today, for traveling here, and for those that are via live stream. Today we gather to remember, to share the stories, and to celebrate the lives of Kurt and Bonnie Ketter, or as I know them, Nana and Papa. Although we miss them, today is about gratitude. Gratitude for the memories, the lessons, and the family they built. I'd like to begin by sharing a combined obituary of their lives, followed by stories and memories shared by loved ones. Kurt Worth Ketter and Bonnie Burr Ketter, devoted husband and wife for more than 60 years, were reunited in eternity after lives defined by love, faith, service, and family. Kurt was born August 16th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Erwin and Evelyn Ketter. He passed away on May 21st, 2023, at the age of 80. Bonnie was born July 25th, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, to Harvey and June Burr, and passed away on November 29th, 2025, at the age of 83. High school sweethearts Kurt and Bonnie met in junior high and quickly became inseparable. After Kurt lost his front teeth in 7th grade and worried, "Who will marry me now?" the answer soon appeared in the form of Bonnie Jean Burr. Beautiful, intelligent, and kind, they married on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1964, beginning a lifelong partnership rooted in devotion and mutual respect.
And I didn't even remember Kurt was there.
Hello, everyone. We'll get started. If you want to grab some food, you're welcome to. All right. Thank you all for being here today, for traveling here, and for those that are via live stream. Today we gather to remember to share the stories and to celebrate the lives of Kurt and Bonnie Ketter, or as I know them, Nana and Papa. Although we miss them, today is about gratitude. Gratitude for the memories, the lessons, and the family they built. I'd like to begin by sharing a combined obituary of their lives, followed by stories and memories shared by loved ones. Kurt Worth Ketter and Bonnie Burr Ketter, devoted husband and wife for more than 60 years, were reunited in eternity after lives defined by love, faith, service, and family. Kurt was born August 16, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Erwin and Evelyn Ketter. He passed away on May 21, 2023 at the age of 80. Bonnie was born July 25, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Harvey and June Burr, and passed away on November 29, 2025 at the age of 83. High school sweethearts Kurt and Bonnie met in junior high and quickly became inseparable. After Kurt lost his front teeth in 7th grade and worried, "Who will marry me now?" the answer soon
I didn't even remember Kurt was there.
Hello, everyone. We'll get started. If you want to grab some food, you're welcome to. All right. Thank you all for being here today, for traveling here, and for those that are via live stream. Today we gather to remember to share the stories and to celebrate the lives of Kurt and Bonnie Ketter, or as I know them, Nana and Papa. Although we miss them, today is about gratitude. Gratitude for the memories, the lessons, and the family they built. I'd like to begin by sharing a combined obituary of their lives, followed by stories and memories shared by loved ones. Kurt Worth Ketter and Bonnie Burr Ketter, devoted husband and wife for more than 60 years, were reunited in eternity after lives defined by love, faith, service, and family. Kurt was born August 16, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Erwin and Evelyn Ketter. He passed away on May 21, 2023 at the age of 80. Bonnie was born July 25, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Harvey and June Burr, and passed away on November 29, 2025 at the age of 83. High school sweethearts Kurt and Bonnie met in junior high and quickly became inseparable. After Kurt lost his front teeth in 7th grade and worried, "Who will marry me now?" the answer soon appeared in the form of Bonnie Jean Burr. Beautiful, intelligent, and kind, they married on Valentine's Day, February 14, 1964, beginning a lifelong partnership rooted in devotion and mutual respect. Kurt grew up in Illinois and attended Schurz High School, where he developed his love of athletics and competition. Tall, handsome, and good-natured, he was known for his calm temperament, reliability, and quiet confidence. From his father, he inherited steadiness and faithfulness. From his mother, warmth and compassion. His favorite actor, John Wayne, reflected his admiration for integrity and quiet strength. Kurt earned a degree in engineering and spent his life with Western Electric, an AT&T subsidiary, until his retirement. Though proud of his work, his true passion was always his family. He never brought work home and rarely spoke about it, choosing instead to invest his time and energy in those he loved. After retirement, Kurt remained actively involved in softball and baseball, continuing to play with his friends well into later years. He was also a dedicated member of the choir of the Chesapeake, traveling with the group as they performed at various locations throughout the region. Bonnie, the eldest of 5 children, grew up in Chicago and assumed a nurturing role early in life, helping raise her younger siblings. The gift of caregiving shaped her entire life. After completing nursing school, she worked in a nursing home before becoming a devoted stay-at-home mother. In 1966, Kurt and Bonnie moved to Baltimore, Maryland, where they adopted 2 children, Steve in 1967 and Karen in 1969. They settled in Hamilton, where they raised their family for more than 2 decades. Together, Kurt and Bonnie created a home filled with love, faith, laughter, and music. Bonnie had a deep love of music, especially opera. Her favorite singer was Beverly Sills, and she also cherished Broadway musicals. Particularly, The Phantom of the Opera was a musical. Whenever a musical appeared on television, she made it a family event. Bonnie expressed her creativity through needlepoint and took quite pride in her handmade projects. Though she often insisted she was not a great cook, Steve and Karen fondly remember her sizzle burgers, homemade spaghetti and meat sauce, broccoli puff casserole, and chocolate chip cookies, meals that became a beloved family staple. As a young woman, Bonnie loved fishing, and later she and Kurt shared a passion for deep-sea fishing whenever they traveled near the ocean. Each summer, the family continued their treasured tradition of vacationing in Wildwood, New Jersey, building memories that lasted a lifetime. Kurt was deeply involved in his children's lives, especially through youth sports. He coached basketball, baseball, and softball, usually serving as an assistant coach because he preferred supporting others over being in the spotlight. He was steady, patient, and encouraging, always focused on helping every child succeed. He also ensured his children were prepared for life skills. He taught practical skills, confidence, and responsibility. Karen learned car maintenance at a young age, including changing tires, jumping batteries, and handling basic repairs, lessons that empowered her long into adulthood. Faith was the central to Kurt and Bonnie's lives. They were longtime members of the Epiphany Lutheran Church in Baltimore, where Kurt served faithfully in administration and financial roles for many years. He also cherished weekly Saturday morning basketball games at the church hall with Steve and longtime friends. Family vacations were sacred traditions, especially their annual trip to Wildwood and their visits to Hershey Park. Kurt was also well known for his love of food and his legendary enthusiasm for all-you-can-eat buffets. Kurt and Bonnie renewed their wedding vows in 2014 at Epiphany Lutheran Church in celebration of their 50th anniversary, an endearing testament to their devotion and partnership. They were devoted parents who took hundreds of photographs of their children, preserving memories of every milestone and everyday joy. Bonnie often said that her proudest achievement in life was being a mother. In later years, Bonnie faced Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's disease with remarkable courage, grace, and dignity. Throughout her illness, she remained surrounded by the love and devotion of her family. To their grandchildren, Kurt was Pop-Pop and Bonnie was Nana. They delighted in every visit, milestone, and shared moment. Their hugs, encouragements, and quiet wisdom became defining parts of family life, passing lovingly from generation to generation. Today in life, together in love, and now together forever, Kurt and Bonnie Ketter leave behind a legacy of humility, kindness, faith, and unwavering devotion to family. Their lives remind us of the true greatness is found in quiet service, gentle strength, and unconditional love. They will be deeply remembered and missed.
Hello, everyone, and Lauren, thank you for arranging this, and Steve for shuttling us around. And I want to start today with something that you grandkids might not know about, that your great-grandparents, Bonnie's mom and Dad, eloped on January 4th, 1941, when my mom was 18. They stole the family car. They drove from Madison, Wisconsin to Dubuque, Iowa, where the legal age to marry without parental consent was 18. They found a justice of the peace, an inebriated man in the street, and my dad paid him to attest to my mom's age and be a witness to their marriage, and that's how it started. A year later, Bonnie was born in 42. My mom had just turned 20 the month before she was born. The United States was fully engaged in World War II at the time, and not too long after Bonnie's birth, my dad was drafted into the Army and assigned to officer candidate school at Fort Benning, Georgia. As a very young mom, my mom turned to her parents, Russ and Lillian Morrison, for help raising Bonnie without a dad around. From the pictures I have found, my grandparents doted on Bonnie as their first grandchild, and even taking them on their annual vacations to Florida in the winter and to Door County, Wisconsin in the summer. So they were around, and they were instrumental in helping to raise Bonnie. When my dad returned from the Army, he and my mom resumed their independent life. My sister Nancy arrived 4 years after Bonnie in 1946, and 4 years later, I was born. Now, after my arrival, however, my brother Russ was born 17 months later, and my brother Gary followed him by 20 months. So there were now a family of 5, the last 3 of us born in 3.5 years. It was a busy time. I remember Bonnie, who was 12 at the time, helping my mom with things like bathing the babies, which is what we called the two youngest, my brothers. Eventually it became the boys. She fed them, she changed diapers, she did everything. She was a mother's helper. She was responsible also for braiding my long hair when my mom was too busy, and that was a trip, because if she wasn't too happy with me that day, I don't know if you've ever had to get braids in your hair, she would make sure those braids were tight. I remember her as quiet, kind of serious, and not at all like the rest of us who were pretty boisterous. I remember my parents always making sure she had her own room, or at least her own space in the house, when the rest of us had to share. In our first house, she had a bed and a desk in a corner of what used to be a porch off the dining room, while the rest of us slept in the bedroom upstairs. When I was little, I wondered if she was lonesome in her little space alone while the rest of us were upstairs. But somehow, I think she was just fine with her corner of the world. That first house we lived in had a coal-burning furnace. By the way, I got into the coal cellar one day. I thought that would be fun to slide down it. That was not a good idea. Somehow, the house was ice cold in the winter, no matter how much coal my dad shoveled into that behemoth of a furnace. Despite the cold house, though, winter meant going to the park at the end of the street to ice skate. A section of the park was always flooded to make a rink, and I remember Bonnie, who could skate really well. Did you know that? Pulling my two brothers and me on a sled across the ice rink because we couldn't skate, nor were there enough skates to go around for a family of 5. I thought it was pretty much the best thing ever until my dad took all of us to a hill where you could ride a toboggan down so fast that the world kind of spun. I so remember those. Bonnie seldom laughed, but I think she did that day. We finally moved to a larger house, and one with 4 bedrooms, and Bonnie now has a room of her own, while the rest of us still shared. By now, I was old enough to be envious of Bonnie's private space, as well as the fact that my parents arranged for her to take piano lessons, bought her special shoes for reasons I never understood. And when she began to experience teenage acne, they took her to a dermatologist. This is when I really began to feel jealous of Bonnie's privileges. It felt like she got everything and a private room to boot. So when Bonnie started high school, to give you an illustration of the difference, I started first grade. We were 8 years apart. But what I remember about Bonnie during high school years were watching her practice for cheerleading tryouts. She didn't make it, but I remember her in the backyard trying to jump high enough, and I think she could get about half an inch off the ground. And she loved going to football games with her pom-poms and her cowbell and cheer for the Schurz Bulldogs. But for some reason, I was particularly fascinated with those pom-poms, and going into her room or touching them was forbidden. However, one day when she was gone, I did go into her room, and I was having a great time with those pom-poms when I heard her footsteps coming up the stairs. I panicked, knowing I couldn't get out of her room without her seeing me, and I knew she'd tell on me, so I climbed out her window onto the roof that turned out to be very hot in the afternoon sun. I hid on that hot roof for what seemed like hours, though probably it was 10 minutes, and was relieved when my mom finally called us for dinner. As soon as Bonnie left the room, I crawled back inside undetected. I never told her. But now you know, sweetie. And as Lauren talked about, Bonnie loved fishing. When our family traveled to our summer place, Door County, Wisconsin, Bonnie fished from the resort dock as often as she could. One summer, my parents even paid for a fishing boat trip so Bonnie could fish further out in Lake Michigan. She was thrilled. And I remember not understanding why she didn't want to swim at the beach, make sandcastles, catch minnows like the rest of us, but I just accepted that fishing was her thing, not mine. But I want to tell you guys, the most vivid memory I have of Bonnie growing up were the dresses she wore to her school dances. One dress in particular is etched in my mind. To my 8-year-old eyes, she looked like a fairy princess when she floated down the stairs in a strapless yellow knee-length dress. I don't remember anything about Kurt being there or who took her to that dance because I was focused on that dress. That same night, I remember my mom hosting Bonnie's friends for a pre-dance cocktail party. They called it a little take-on cocktail. And that, again, was something I was forbidden to join or peek at, but I did. This is what I saw. I could hardly believe my eyes when I saw that her mom had taken the plastic off the furniture for the event, something she'd never done before. I thought, whoa, this must be really something. And in parentheses, I wrote, it was. Even years later on my wedding day, she left the plastic on the furniture. It seemed like all of a sudden Bonnie graduated from high school and was gone to nursing school. At first, her room was empty, but eventually my parents relented and let my sister Nancy, my middle sister, take Bonnie's room when she was away at school. But when Bonnie was home, Nancy had to move back in with me. Neither one of us were very happy with sharing a room and did not like each other very much. So yes, room envy was a thing for me. Now, my memories of Kurt at that time are vague, and Lauren, I think you hit on it with Kurt's calm demeanor. I wrote here, it seemed to me that he had always been there, like a part of the family. When they married, Bonnie chose Nancy and me as bridesmaids, and I was thrilled to put on this royal blue dress and matching shoes and matching pillbox hat and walk down the aisle. But what I remember about that day was the joy on Bonnie's face as she walked down that aisle. I had never seen that much joy on my sister's face ever. And 60 years later, you know why. But I also remember with great joy that when I visited Bonnie and Kurt in their first place, I discovered that finally, Bonnie had to share a room. Justice, I thought. I'm going to tell you one story about Bonnie. When I was 13, I hurt my back and I was in the hospital for 7 days on complete bed rest. But because of my age, I was in a pediatric unit with no privacy whatsoever. I had to use a bedpan. I had to have a bed bath. I was humiliated as a 13-year-old. Bonnie put on her nurse's uniform and her cap and came to the hospital to be my private duty nurse. She came every day for 7 days just to sit with me, help with bedpan duties and bed baths. I survived, but I don't think I ever told her thanks for getting me through that time. But I think now she knows. When Bonnie and Kurt moved to Baltimore, we seldom saw them because it was a long and expensive trip from Chicago for our family of 6. When Barry, my husband, and I married in July of '71, Bonnie and Kurt came for the occasion. Carol and Frank got married just 6 days before we did, interestingly. So actually, Bonnie and Kurt got double wedding for that trip. On my wedding day, I was frantic and asked Bonnie to help me with my hair. It was just miserably hot and humid. And try as she might, she couldn't get my hair to behave to my satisfaction. I remember ordering her to leave my room, only to call her back 30 seconds later. This went on for at least a half an hour. I don't know how she put up with me that day, but she did. And I guess I still got married anyway, despite how my hair looked. By the time Barry and I had our kids, Melissa and Josh, my son here, Bonnie regularly supplied us with Karen and Steven's outgrown clothes. My daughter, Melissa, was always thrilled to be wearing her cousin Karen's clothes. And when I bought her a new outfit once, she said, "Who wore this before?" I said, "Well, honey, nobody, it's brand new." And she replied, very disappointed, "Oh." It wasn't as good as Karen's clothes, apparently. And when Josh was born, it was Bonnie and Kurt I chose to be his godparents by proxy since they live so far away. Unfortunately, Bonnie's and my relationship as adults was limited mostly to phone calls because we lived so far apart. However, when Kurt called me one day to say Bonnie's health was such that he moved her to a full-time care facility called Esther's Place, Barry and I arranged a trip to see her. While she seemed to know who we were, sadly, Bonnie could not have a meaningful conversation with me. But the silver lining during this time is I really got to know Kurt and became deeply, deeply grateful for the care that he dedicated himself of Bonnie. He never complained. He just kept putting one foot in front of the other. He became someone I could always call about anything, retirement advice, how Medicare worked, whatever. He had that kind of voice that always reassured me no matter how stressed or unsure I was. When my own husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 4 years ago, Kurt was the first person I turned to for sympathy and guidance. He was always there with that calm, reassuring tone that I'd come to love and rely on. I'll never forget the sound of his words when he answered the phone with his trademark, "Hello." Anybody remember that? Yeah. Kurt, I've so missed our calls. Last, Bonnie, thank you for being my big sister. Despite all the ups and downs of our life and disagreements we had over certain topics, like you always having your own room, you were always there every minute of my life until that Saturday when Stephen called to say you'd passed. During your last months in memory care, when I'd call, you'd listen to me ramble on and on and on about all my troubles, and yet as sick as you were, Bonnie, you always seemed to find the right word or words that made me feel better. It was uncanny, given that stage of her disease. On my last visit to you, 6 days ahead of your passing, I apologized to you for not coming to see you sooner, because Bonnie and I had a plan. When she moved to Vegas, I was going to come down, bling out her walker, and we were going to stroll the strip and pick up men. So I apologized to her that I didn't get there sooner, and I said, well, are you still glad I came? I didn't expect an answer because speech was kind of beyond her at that point, but the one and the only word she said that entire day was yes in response to my question. What a gift that single word was. Thank you. I will always miss you, and I'll love you forever. Love from your favorite sister, Wendy.
You might want to lower that mic on the side there. It's in the camera view, that's the big mic. Can we just move that? All right. I think Carol, you're up.
Okay, I did have notes, but. I'm Kurt's younger sister, Carol, and I thought that maybe I should have a theme. So my theme for my little talk was the girls always loved Kurt, as you can kind of see from Wendy. And I enjoyed so much what you were saying about, about Bonnie. And, I knew your family a little bit, but we didn't get to see each other very much either. But anyway, this great love of the women for Kurt, of course, started out with my mother, who herself had a wonderful personality, but her very favorite, in fact, I was just talking about it with my grandson, thank you, honey, and he was saying to me, oh, I know, Grandma's favorite was an 11-year-old boy. And I have two of them right now. Both my daughters have 11-year-old sons. But she, of course, loved her granddaughters also, and many others. And I remember my favorite little boy, because I also had a very favorite, was Stephen. Didn't I always talk about, he was the cutest, but I didn't get to see him very much because we lived far away. They were in Baltimore, and we always lived in Chicago. We kind of stayed where we were, so you had to come and see us. But anyway, so my mother had a great love for her little baby boy, Kurt, and she was very particular about who she was going to let take care of this precious little boy. And she pretty much only let our cousin Jean, who was about 8 years older than we, take care of him. So there was Jean, who was my Aunt Gert's daughter, and then my Aunt Grace had a little girl named Joni, and Kurt was Joni's very favorite playmate. And then after that, I had another girl cousin, my Aunt Mutz's daughter, and she was just a year younger than Kurt, and they too were just like this. And here I am, I came along then after that and had these girl cousins who were always focused when we got together on Kurt. Let the little girl do whatever she's going to do. But I didn't mind because I also loved him. I thought he was the most wonderful brother that I could have had, although he was really a tease. Well, not only did I really think that I was pretty special to have this wonderful brother who had a great personality. He got along with the boys, he liked sports and all that kind of stuff, and he really loved even my dad's friends. He just thought he was one of the buddies there too. But my girlfriends also, several of them had crushes on him, and one in particular, her name was Mary Lou Korn, and Kurt would always chant when she would come into the house, "Yoo-hoo, Mary Lou, Louise Cornfield Gilbus, ha!" And she would just become hysterical with laughter. But that was the effect that he had. I mean, he certainly was never afraid of any girl. But he did have a crush himself in early elementary school. And her name was Rodney Rudnick. And she was very cute with curls and very smart. And his teacher had the policy of always seating the children by how smart they were. So Ronley, of course, was in the first row, first seat. Well, that meant that Kurt had a chance. So he studied extra hard and got to the first row, second seat. So he got his wish there, although I do not remember Ronley ever even recognizing that he existed. But he had that crush for quite a few years. Later on in elementary school, a story, those of you who lived in Chicago, you know what the weather was like. Okay, well, this was winter, icy, snow, cold. We were in front of our church, and all the boys were sliding on the icy roads. And he fell and knocked out his front teeth. But was he worried about the pain? No, all he could say is, "Who'll marry me now?" That was his concern. Well, when he was in high school, he did have a beautiful girlfriend. She had beautiful red hair, and she was very talented. And that lasted, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or so. But then he met Bonnie, and I think he met her in high school rather than junior high. But he met her, and that was it. Nobody else even existed besides Bonnie. And he always said he wanted to take care of her. This was his woman. And that started it all. It started that Kurt Ketter family that you are all a part of, and I was glad to be a part of. And we've been very blessed by God.
All right, well, thanks for everybody coming out here. And we've got a lot of people who are watching online that couldn't be here today. I've got a couple of my friends from here. And I wanted to say I appreciate everybody coming out. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the facilities and places that had treated Mom, I don't know, over the last 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. There's a lot of people that can't be here that would like to be here. From one of the first places she went to, Esther's place, there was Denise, who was a friend of hers, but thank you to everybody there. There was Levendale, brain hospital that she went to for a long time. And then recently, in the last couple of years, since Dad passed, it was Brightview in Baltimore. And then the last couple months, we brought her out here to Lumina in Las Vegas. And So thank you to everybody in those facilities and everybody that spent some time with her. It was a challenge. I wore yellow today because that was her favorite color. And I have, there's a lot of people that I've talked to recently that were friends of theirs. Kurt had some friends. Jim and Jackie Cottingham were relatives, but Jim was Kurt's best friend for many, many years. And unfortunately, he just passed away. But hello to Jackie, who's hopefully watching this now. The Lyons family, Ted, Larry, and their son Mark, who recently passed away in the last couple of years. It was good to spend time with them growing up. I remember that. There's a new friend that Mom had that's a friend of ours, Anessa, who went and visited her. And I want to say, I'm going to read a couple things that she had asked me to send, to say on here. So let me read that really quick. Anessa met Mom in Baltimore when she came out, and then talked to her a number of times. And she was one of the few that was able to get a really good positive response from Bonnie in recent years. And she took some jabs at her, and she pushed her a little bit, and she's one of the few that got Bonnie to smile and laugh about things, probably because of her sarcastic nature. But she says, let me just read this. I met Bonnie in May of 2024 in Baltimore. My dear friends Steve and Mira brought me along with them to visit Steve's mom in an elderly facility. From the moment we met, Bonnie and I became instant friends. She was skinny and weak, yet super sharp in her mind. She was witty, smart, funny, sarcastic, and truly intelligent. We had a great time together. We joked, we laughed, we talked. Bonnie would let me know about her favorite opera singer, and how her husband would get her book signed by that singer. I remember when it was cold in Bonnie's room and covering myself with her blanket, Bonnie said, "Don't forget to leave my blanket when you're leaving my room." She had a couple other things to say in here, but Anessa was very sweet during that time, and I wanted to say thank you. Obviously, my sister Karen couldn't make it here. You know, there's a little bit of snow on the East Coast, and I think her car is still snowed in Baltimore. She's staying at the house, but she helped me put some things together for this. I had really great memories of them growing up. I grew up in Baltimore, spent about 30 years there, and then moved away. But we had a great time. And I remember playing basketball and baseball and football in rec leagues. And Kurt, my dad, I would say, I often reference him, Kurt and Bonnie, but that's more of a formal thing. Dad would take me, and he often would either coach or referee or definitely be part of it. Mom took me a lot of places, and we did a lot of things as a family. I thought it was really good. We went on vacations to Wildwood, New Jersey almost every summer. And there's a handful of anecdotal stories. A lot of it I'll share privately. But I'll share two of them, as a matter of fact. My dad, if you look at him, when he was a little bit younger, he did bear resemblance to the actor Leslie Nielsen. And we went to a restaurant in Maryland one time, and one of the people at the restaurant thought that he was Leslie Nielsen. And we just kind of went along with that. And that became a little bit of a story and a little bit of a joke. In addition, it was a nicer restaurant, and I remember, I was very young at the time, there was a nicer restaurant we went to that had these cloth napkins, and he blew his nose into one of these cloth napkins, and I don't think you were supposed to do that. I didn't know any better at the time, but I remember him being chastised by my mom for doing that. One of the other funny stories that I can remember, and trust me, I'm giving a handful of them, but there are hundreds. We went to Wildwood, New Jersey, which was about a 3-hour drive from our house. And one of the times we went, Karen and I, we woke up early in the morning for the drive, and we just got out of bed and got in the back and put blankets and pillows there. And both Karen and I forgot our only pair of shoes on the 3-hour drive to there because we had walked out of the house without them. So we didn't have any shoes when we went to Wildwood. I'm gathering we had to buy some. I don't remember much more beyond that. But And another time we had all 4 of our bikes strapped to a bike rack to the back of the car. And we're driving down the road and we get to a gas station and a car pulls up behind us at a gas station. And the person gets out with a bike tire and they said, you know, this bike tire had come off the bikes while you were on the freeway and was bouncing over vehicles, and we picked it up and followed you to the gas station so we could give it to you. So that's a couple of cute stories here. So Bonnie had battled alcoholism for a little bit, and she ended up going to AA, and she ended up stopping drinking and actually working for AA for a little bit. She was, prior to that, she was a nurse in a nursing home, and she really had a good heart, and she was a good person, and she battled some of her own demons, and at some point, some of her mental health issues took over, and they diagnosed her with what they felt was Lewy body dementia. And Lewy body dementia it's a type of protein that attacks the brain cells and attaches to the brain cells, and it causes a lot of different problems with people. It takes a little bit to diagnose. It's not definitive until someone passes away and they do an autopsy, and we didn't do that, by the way, but they were about 99% certain that's what it was. And so it affects cognitive skills and motor skills, and it went in conjunction with Parkinson's. And so she struggled with that for many, many years after that. And it got progressively worse. We moved her out to Las Vegas. She was doing fine for a little bit. And I realized it was a little bit of a burden. And I needed to come back. I was traveling at the time. I needed to come off a project I was on. And I came back and I helped my sweet wife, Mira, who was taking care of her every day. I came out and both of us did. And it went for a little bit of time until she started getting a little better and more comfortable. And then at one point, probably just a couple weeks before her passing, she stopped talking. And we could tell it was getting worse. And then she stopped being able to swallow, and she would pocket food. And we just knew that it was near the end. And without going into a whole lot of details, fortunately, Mira and I were able to be with her. On the morning that she passed, and we had gotten there in the morning about 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock, and we took her blood oxygen. It was very low. And probably about 30 minutes later, we took it again, and there was no reading. And we just realized that while we were sitting there, she had passed away peacefully. Dad, on the other hand, had a couple years earlier passed, and we, for our personal reasons, waited to do all this at one time. We probably should have done something prior, but we did not. And now we're able to do all that. But he was just a great person. And I want to read and discuss something that I think probably summarizes how I live now and how I feel that he helped me to go in the right direction. And my friends who are here will know about this. There was a Native American chief named Tecumseh. And he was a great chief around the end of the 18th century. And he was Native American. They were fighting with, obviously, the colonial settlers. But he became known for what a great leader he was and a great orator. And he prepared a poem which became the Tecumseh poem. And it's one of those that oftentimes it's used for military and law enforcement references. There are a few quotes in there that give a strong meaning to certain things. But for me, I think the entire poem goes quite a bit deeper. And I think it's a good roadmap for how someone should live their lives. And I'm going to go through it. I memorized the poem, and I've said it probably 1,000 times. I still needed to write a couple things down here because I got a lot to think about. But the poem goes like this. And I want you to remember each line because this is a good blueprint for you guys to live your lives as well. And the poem goes, so live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their views and demand they respect yours. Love your life. Perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Always give a word or sign of salute when meeting or passing a friend, even a stranger when in a lonely place. Show respect to all people and grovel to none. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason to give thanks, the fault lies only in yourself. Abuse no one or no thing, for abuse turns wise men to fools and robs the spirit of its vision. When it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, who weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. I think if you listen to that and you take some of the words in there, it's a really good way to live your life, and I think that's one of the things that Kurt has left with me. And I just want to leave you with, Mira and I ended up, my lovely, sweet wife Mira's going to come up here in a moment and talk, but we ended up recently buying a place in Italy. And it was in a good part through what Kurt was able to do and help us. And we would like to invite everybody out, all of our friends and family. When we get it together, you're welcome to come out and spend some time out there and enjoy it. And we're going to have it as a remembrance and a family place for us. So I think that's about all that I have. And thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming out. And I'm going to stay up here while Mira's going to say something too.
Hi guys, I'm apologize for my English and I need Steve to translate my English to normal English just in case. Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, I didn't have the privilege to knowing Steve and Karen's parents for very long, but I remember meeting their father Kurt for the first time very clearly. He had the kindest, brightest blue eyes. Being near him, you felt safe. You felt that he could protect you from life's troubles, that he was always ready to listen and understand. To me, that is what God's love looks like: unconditional, patient, never-ending, and full of strength. Everything Steve shared about his father Kurt reflect those qualities of God's love, and his father lived them every day. In the way he treated others, in how he cared for his family, and in the legacy he felt behind. He showed what it means to live with wisdom and grace. To me, he's the true example of someone who lived his life well. If God sends angels to this earth in human form, then one of them was Steve's father. I would also like to say a few words about Steve's and Karen's mother, Bunny. I knew her for an even shorter time, but I was blessed to be with her during her final months. She had a strong and beautiful spirit. I saw her strength in her honesty and authenticity. She never pretended to be someone she was not. She faced her circumstances with courage and dignity. We often forget that unless we walk in someone else's shoes, we cannot fully understand how difficult their journey was been. Together, Mom and Dad raised wonderful children. and they were blessed to spend their entire lives side by side. Their lives remind us that life is not always easy, but when we choose love, faith, and perseverance, our effort will always bear
Meaningful fruit.
meaningful fruit. That's what I was to say about this amazing couple. For me, it's truly example like big love, big hearts, and fight with some not easy life. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad and Mira. And thank you, Lauren, for putting everything together. I'd like to start off with, my name's Kyle, or to most of the family, the golden one, or the favorite. I thought I would share some of my earliest memories about the wonderful people I knew growing up. When we first moved to Utah, sorry, I gotta zoom in. When we first moved to Utah from Baltimore, I remember flying back by myself for a week at a time for the following years to be with them. I was always excited to see Pop waiting at the gate for me, because when I saw him, he was this giant best friend I ever had. And I knew I had a whole week of fun planned with the both of them. I also remember the car ride taking forever, but later realized that Pop was just one of those stereotypical grandpa drivers that would take a 30-minute drive and turn it into an hour and a half. But it was always the same. I would get to the house where Nan was waiting on the couch for me, and before I could toss my stuff on the ground, I'd run over and give her the biggest hug, and then run straight to the kitchen because I had 2 gallons of my favorite ice cream waiting in the freezer. That was almost like a tradition, where once I got to the house, we would sit in the kitchen, eat ice cream, and talk about how much I missed them. It's funny when I think back on all the time I spent with them and all the memories I have. All the memories I have are fun and loving. I mean, I have so many different ones where we would go to the farm to feed the cows, or go to Hershey Park to ride the roller coaster in Pennsylvania. It was always a bit of a fight to get Nan to come out, but I was able to coax her into it, as long as she wore her big giant sun blocker glasses. And even as the years went on, I constantly stayed in touch with them. What I cherish the most is how they never once judged me for the mistakes I made, especially when I entered my teenage years. I had turned into a monster who chose a bit of an unsavory path, but even then I always knew I could call them for guidance and support after I'd burned so many bridges at home. Not once did they ever hold it against me. As I overcame these obstacles in later years, I would get so excited to call Pop and Nan to just talk for hours and tell them about all the accomplishments and things that I have done. A big part of that was my wife Jess. When I had first started getting my act together, Jess played a huge role in my life, and I think Pop absolutely loved her for it. He would call her my savior, and I wouldn't be who I am today without her guidance. But to have them never sway from their care and love for me was the best I could ever ask for. I have so many wonderful memories with them that I could talk about forever. Some of them are funny, and those who knew Bonnie knew she was a firecracker. and she was grumpy as hell most of the time. But every time I would go and see her, I could just see the smile light up on her face. And I would give her crap about it, which I thought was really fun. One memory I have that was just recent that Jess and Karen were witness to, which I think is really funny and explains my relationship with Nan. Karen has knickknacks all over the house in Baltimore. She has little tiny, all sorts of treasures. She had a rubber Pillsbury Doughboy knickknack that I thought was one of those coin holders that you can shove coins into. And so I was in the kitchen trying to pull the head off so I could see if there was coins inside. And I remember Karen getting pretty upset with me and telling me not to break her stuff. And this was when Nan was at Esther's place. And Jess and I went over and we told her the story, and she said, no, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I could never do anything wrong. And got mad at Karen for yelling at me. But that was it. I mean, I loved them dearly. Their relationship is a true testament of what true love is. They set wonderful examples of how you can love another person for many, many years and care for one person. I've never met another man like Pop that cared for his spouse like he did. I mean, it's incredible the amount of stress and pressure he dealt with while on top of being calm the entire time he was with her. And there were some times she was not so nice to him. I have quite a few memories where she would use some flavorful words towards him. But he never got mad. He always cared for her. I know I want to thank Cherie Starr. I don't know if she's watching, but when we moved Nan out here, it was a challenge on the airplane. I think we were grounded for 11 hours or something like that, stuck on the airplane. And this was at the peak of her deterioration, so it wasn't the easiest task. And I remember we were trying to get her to go to sleep. We kept feeding her Ambien. I mean, it's not the best thing, but we were trying to feed her Ambien to get her to sleep a little bit because of the rain delays and the delays on the tarmac. So during that time, it was challenging and it was tough. And I want to thank Star for helping me with that, because there's no way I could have done it by myself. She was a handful in and of herself. I just want to say, finally, I'm so grateful that they were a part of my life, and everything that they did for my family, and the care that they had for Jess when she came into my life, to take on my daughter Mila, who I think a lot of people know now, but some who don't, is not blood mine. I adopted Mila in 2017 or 2018, and they cared for her like she was one of our own, and the rest of my family. I couldn't be more grateful for that. I'm happy they're together, back together now, and I just love and miss them dearly. Thank you.
So I'm Nana's youngest granddaughter, and I'm going to read a poem. Though love was quiet and true, felt in the little things they do, through they are going on, that love remains. So let us remember, not with pain, but with gratitude, that we remain a beautiful life, forever part of every beating, loving heart.
I'm so lucky to be your great-grandchild. We love and will always remember you.
see you again.
Do you want to have a camera?
I just want to say how grateful I am for each of you for making the effort to be here and celebrate their lives. Even though they are no longer with us physically, their presence haven't left us. Living across the country from my grandparents, I still recall and cherish the moments and memories I have when we were together. In closing, I'd like to share a text from the Epiphany Lutheran Church. Let us commend Kurt and Bonnie to the mercy of God, our Maker and Redeemer. We're silent. Into your hands, our merciful Savior, we commend your servants, Kurt and Bonnie Ketter. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, the sheep of your own fold, lambs of your own flock, sinners of your own redeeming. Receive them into the arms of mercy, into the blessed rest, everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints in light. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I think that's it. Thank you guys for coming out, and let's stay and have something to eat. And
Yeah.
Folks, please help yourselves. Everything is ready.